The town of Millbrook, Ohio, looked like something out of a postcard. Quiet streets, white picket fences, neighbors who waved at each other every morning. Nobody in Millbrook expected a family like the Mitchells to end up on the front page of the local paper. David Mitchell was 34 years old. He worked as a regional sales manager, often traveling 3 or 4 days a week. His wife, Rachel Mitchell, was 31. She stayed home, working part-time as a bookkeeper from their small house on Maple Street. They had been married for 8 years. To everyone who knew them, they seemed like the perfect couple. David's younger brother, Kevin Mitchell, lived just 15 minutes away. He was 29, single, and worked at a hardware store downtown. Kevin had always been close to David's family. After their father passed away, Kevin leaned on David and Rachel for support. He came over often. Sunday dinners, holidays, sometimes just to fix something around the house while David was out of town. Nobody thought twice about it. David's mother, Linda Mitchell, lived on the other side of Millbrook. She was 62, a retired schoolteacher, and a woman who noticed everything. Linda had always been proud of her sons, but over the past year, something had started to bother her. It was small things at first. Kevin's truck parked outside Rachel's house too often. Rachel's phone always turned face down when Linda visited. Linda told herself she was imagining things. Mothers worry. That's what she believed. But one evening in early October, everything changed. It was a Tuesday night. David was away in Columbus for a work conference. Linda had stopped by Rachel's house to drop off a casserole dish she had borrowed weeks earlier. She didn't call ahead. She never did with family. When she pulled into the driveway, she noticed Kevin's truck parked behind the garage, half hidden by the hedges. Linda sat in her car for a long moment. Something told her not to go inside. She left the dish on the porch and drove home without knocking. That night, she didn't sleep. 3 days later, David came home from his trip. Linda invited him over for coffee, hoping to find the right words. She never got the chance. Because 2 days after that, on a cold Thursday morning, Kevin Mitchell was found dead in his apartment. The call came in at 7:42 a.m. A coworker, worried when Kevin didn't show up for his shift, went to check on him and found the door unlocked. Kevin was lying at the bottom of his apartment stairs. Blood pooled near his head. His neck was twisted at an unnatural angle. The coworker called 911 immediately. Detective Sarah Coleman of the Millbrook Police Department arrived on the scene within 20 minutes. She had been with the department for 11 years, known for her calm, methodical approach to even the messiest cases. At first glance, it looked like a tragic accident. A man living alone, a steep staircase, maybe one drink too many the night before. But Detective Coleman noticed something odd. Kevin's shoes were still on. Neatly tied. Not the kind of detail you'd expect from someone who had simply tripped near the stairs on their way to bed. There was also a faint bruise on his forearm, the kind that comes from someone gripping tightly, not falling. Coleman ordered a full forensic examination before ruling anything out. The medical examiner's report came back 2 days later. Kevin's death was caused by blunt force trauma to the back of the skull, consistent with a fall. But the angle of the injury was unusual. It suggested the blow came before the fall, not from the fall itself. This was no longer a routine accident. This was now a suspicious death investigation. Detective Coleman began by speaking to those closest to Kevin. First on her list, his brother, David. David appeared devastated. He said he'd been on a business trip in Columbus and had only returned home the day after Kevin's body was found. His hotel receipts confirmed a check-in for that week. His co-workers backed up his attendance at the conference. On paper, his alibi looked solid. Next, Coleman spoke to Rachel. She described Kevin as a wonderful brother-in-law, always helpful, always kind. When asked if she noticed anything unusual in Kevin's behavior recently, Rachel hesitated for just a moment before saying no. That hesitation stayed with Detective Coleman. She requested Kevin's phone records. It took nearly a week to get the warrant approved, but when the records came back, they told a very different story. Dozens of text messages between Kevin and Rachel, sent late at night, many with the phone location pinging near Rachel's house while David was traveling. The messages weren't explicit, but they were intimate. Loving. The kind of messages exchanged between two people hiding something. Detective Coleman now had a motive. If David had discovered the affair, jealousy and betrayal could easily turn into rage. But his alibi still held. He had been in Columbus, over 2 hours away, the night investigators believed Kevin died. Coleman decided to bring Rachel in for a second interview, this time more direct. Under pressure, Rachel broke down. She admitted to the affair. She said it had been going on for nearly 4 months. She insisted David never found out. She said he was still in Columbus that entire week, completely unaware. But Coleman wasn't convinced. She began pulling every piece of evidence apart, looking for a gap somewhere. She requested David's cell phone tower data for the night in question. At first, the data matched his story, showing his phone pinging from a cell tower near his hotel in Columbus. But something felt off. Coleman noticed the phone had barely moved all evening. No calls made. No messages sent. Just sitting still, as if untouched. She pulled hotel security footage next. It took another round of warrants, but eventually, Millbrook PD received footage from the hotel lobby. The footage showed David checking in on Monday evening, just as he claimed. But on Wednesday night, the night Kevin was killed, the footage showed something troubling. At 9:14 p.m., a man matching David's build left through the side exit, wearing a baseball cap pulled low. He didn't return until nearly 2 a.m. Detective Coleman compared this to Kevin's estimated time of death, between 10 p.m. and midnight that same night. It was enough to bring David in for formal questioning. In the interrogation room, David remained calm at first. He denied leaving the hotel, insisting the man in the footage wasn't him. Coleman placed a printed still image on the table. The height matched. The build matched. Even a small tattoo on the wrist, barely visible, matched David's own. David's composure began to crack. Coleman asked him directly, "Did you drive back to Millbrook that night?" Long silence. Then, quietly, David admitted it. He said he had left his phone charging in the hotel room on purpose, so it would still ping the same tower. He drove nearly 2 hours back to Millbrook that night, planning only to confront Kevin about the rumors he'd heard from a coworker. He said he never intended for anyone to get hurt. According to David, he arrived at Kevin's apartment around 9:45 p.m. Kevin answered the door, visibly shocked to see him. David said he confronted Kevin about Rachel. Kevin, according to David, admitted everything, and even seemed relieved to finally say it out loud. An argument broke out. David said Kevin tried to push past him toward the stairs to grab his phone, maybe to call Rachel. David grabbed his arm to stop him. Kevin pulled back. Linda Mitchell, his own mother, had seen his car that night. She had been driving home from a church event around 9:30 p.m. and passed a car she recognized turning onto Kevin's Street, nearly 2 hours away from where David claimed to be. She hadn't said anything to police at first. She told herself it couldn't have been him. She told herself she was mistaken. But when the news broke that David had been arrested, Linda came forward on her own, calling Detective Coleman directly. She said she couldn't protect a lie any longer, even if it meant testifying against her own son. Her testimony confirmed the timeline completely, closing the last gap in the case. David Mitchell was formally charged with second-degree manslaughter, along with evidence tampering and obstruction of justice for staging his alibi. At trial, prosecutors argued that even if Kevin's fall was not intentional, David's actions afterward, fleeing the scene, faking his location, and letting his own family believe it was an accident, showed a clear attempt to escape responsibility. The defense argued it was a tragic accident born from heartbreak and betrayal, not premeditated violence. After 8 days of testimony, the jury returned a verdict. Guilty on the charge of manslaughter. Guilty on evidence tampering. Not guilty on the more serious charge of premeditated murder, as prosecutors could not prove David intended to kill his brother before arriving at the apartment. David was sentenced to 12 years in state prison. Rachel Mitchell was never charged criminally, but the affair destroyed what was left of her life in Millbrook. She moved out of state within a year, unable to face the community that once knew her as David's loving wife. Linda Mitchell continued attending every single day of the trial, sitting quietly in the front row, torn between grief for the son she lost and the son she was forced to condemn. She later told a local reporter that silence, even out of love, can sometimes cost someone their life. In the end, what began as a quiet family gathering over Sunday dinners collapsed into betrayal, deception, and death. Kevin Mitchell died at the bottom of a staircase, caught between his brother's trust and his own mistake. David Mitchell destroyed his family trying to hide one truth, only to have that same truth exposed by the one person who loved him most. And in a small house on Maple Street, the porch light that once welcomed family dinners now stays dark, a quiet reminder of how easily love, jealousy, and silence can turn deadly.